I was born and raised the son of a Prince George's County police officer, and my dad was actually the beat cop in our neighborhood. My brother and I are, we're not quite Irish twins. We're 12 months and 3 weeks apart. And we were born and raised in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house inside the Beltway in College Park, Maryland. My grandfather on my dad's side was a retired lieutenant from the DC Fire Department, and his father, my great-grandfather, was a retired deputy chief from the DC Fire Department. So a long line of Davises in policing and firefighting. And I was constantly around, and I got to see firsthand their real dedication. And one of the things I always remember about my father, I know he was a community cop. I know he was out on foot before that was a thing. And he took us to school in his police car. He volunteered for Sloppy Joe Wednesdays at Holy Redeemer in College Park. So my dad was more than just a police officer in our community, and the community saw him both as a police officer, a protector, a servant, and a human. So that always attracted me to the profession. I went to Catholic grade school in College Park, and then I went to an all-boys Catholic high school in Hyattsville, just down Route 1 from the University of Maryland, DeMatha Catholic High School. I was exposed throughout my childhood and my upbringing to people who valued service and people who exemplified servant leadership, whether it was my own father or the Trinitarian priests at DeMatha.
Chief Davis and I go way back. Kevin Davis, as I knew him back then, came to DeMatha in 1984, and I was his guidance counselor as a senior. So I noticed in Kevin right away, here was a leader, very respectful young man, very gifted. He was on our football team in 1986. So even way back then, he had gifts and talents, and I always found Mr. Kevin Davis back then to be very approachable and very committed to the values that we have as a school. He always has had a commitment, at least verbally to me, that he wanted to help the community. So I'm not surprised that once again, he has been chosen to be part of a leadership in a field today that is so critical for public confidence and for public safety.
I was attracted to the idea of service to a community, doing something that's bigger than yourself. I thought I was going away to college. I went to then Towson State University, and I pursued and obtained an English degree with a concentration in writing. I tell people, as much as I was around police officers and firefighters growing up, I was never encouraged or discouraged, at least verbally, to go into the profession. I would say that I was inspired to do it. And I remember going to my dad, and I told him, I said, until I figure out what I want to do with my life, I'm going to be a police officer for a couple years and get my feet on the ground and figure out what I want to do. And I remember him telling me, number one, he was proud of me, and number two, he said, you'll never leave the profession. Well, being in policing from 1992 through 2018 was a long journey, and I've learned a lot. I've grown a lot personally. I've grown a lot professionally. I have a far different mindset today than I did in 1992. My beloved profession in crisis, and I do think this is a moment in America where policing, justifiably so and necessarily so, is under a microscope. I don't want to sit on the sidelines. I've been part of major reform efforts in a couple jurisdictions. I have significant relationships with the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. I know why reform is needed. I know how to implement reform. I know how to change behaviors that detract from our relationship with the community. And I think 2021 is the perfect opportunity for me to return to what I love.
I think what people will be most impressed with Chief Davis is not what he says, but what he does. And they'll be able to measure very quickly his commitment to the kind of issues that we've been concerned with, which of course is having a police department that reflects the community that it serves, and one that is respected and protected of its citizen. If he's able to meet that goal, I think he'll do fine. We were very pleased with him in Anne Arundel. He worked to diversify the police department, and he listened to the citizens here in the county. If he does that in Fairfax, I think it will prove to be very effective.
I've got a lot, in my opinion, to offer, but I have to do the hard work of explaining to police officers what I mean by reform. I want them to be better educated. I want them to have better training. I want them to know that their health and welfare and wellness and the health, welfare, and wellness of their families is important to me. I want them to stay past their retirement eligibility. I want them to be our biggest recruiter and encourage their friends and their family and folks in their communities to be police officers. That's quite frankly how I ended up in this profession, because someone inspired me. And I know that police officers who feel valued will offer similar inspiration to people who are around them. And that's when you know you've turned the corner on morale, when your rank and file police officers serve as your biggest assets in recruiting. As far as integrity and accountability, if a police officer knowingly engages in misconduct that disparages, embarrasses, and dishonors this organization, there's no room for that police officer in the Fairfax County Police Department. Those are rare instances, and when they happen, I'll call balls and strikes, and I'll make the right decision for the police department and the community, and I'm going to handle those matters accordingly. And I always have, and I always will.
He could be absolutely hilarious and keep a straight face, but he was also serious. You have somebody who knows how to build partnerships and relationships at the same time. He's going to have a transition period. You've just got to give him a chance and let him settle in, let him build his relationships. He has the tools, he has the knowledge, he has the experience. Give him a chance.
As I introduce myself to the men and women of the police department, I'm not going to be a virtual police chief. They're not just going to see me occasionally in roll call or at an award ceremony or a promotional ceremony. They're going to see me on the streets. I'm going to be at scenes. I'm going to be at all critical incidents in this county. I'm going to back police officers up on traffic stops. I'm going to respond with police officers to calls for service. I'm going to be communicative. I'm going to involve people in all of my decisions, because I don't think we need to run away from our traditions in policing. I think we need to embrace our traditions. I think there are blue waters ahead for the Fairfax County Police Department, blue waters ahead for policing as a whole. I'm not going to ask you to do anything that I haven't done. I'm not going to ask you to do anything that I'm not willing to do. I'm going to explain my decisions. I'm going to seek your input, and we're going to find common ground and move forward. I value cops, I value their families and the sacrifices their families make, because it's a journey that police officers don't travel alone. Their families take that journey with them. So when I put this uniform on, I'm putting the same uniform that they're putting on. And I'm willing to do the same job that they're doing, and I'm going to demonstrate that. And servant leadership is about setting an example. It's not just what I say during an interview or remarks that I give during a press conference. Judge me by my actions.
Selecting a police chief is one of the most important hires the Board of Supervisors undertakes. And I am pleased to move the appointment of Kevin Davis as the next police chief, effective May 3rd, 2021.
And I look forward to being part of this great organization.